But he's going to challenge you on this one. He's going to say the monarchical government described in Star Spangled Crown sounds refreshingly normal. The only part which prevents me from jumping on the monarchist train is how the sovereign could even veto a bill with two-thirds support of the U.S. Congress. Does Charles really think a good government allows one man to annul the will of two-thirds of the people? What about three-fourths?
Well, of course, you're presuming that Congress represent the people.
Ooh.
They don't. Congress represent whoever pays the dough to get them in. Now, mind you, these are important people, but I've often thought that probably if we eliminated voting for Congress entirely and they were simply selected by whichever lobbyists buy them, it would reflect reality a lot more closely. I mean, say Union Carbide buys 27 of our congressmen. Well, why go through the nonsense of having elections when you could just have Union Carbide appoint 27 instead of having to buy 27 elected representatives?
It's interesting.
Well, I mean, all kidding aside, you see, I'm afraid you've made several assumptions that are not in evidence. One of them being that the people are actually represented by their elected officials. My problem with that is that I have lived all my life in a constitutional republic whose government have shoved down my throat things that often the majority opposed. Sometimes they do it through the Supreme Court. Sometimes they do it through Congress. But however they do it, we get to take it and like it and pay for it. Would I trust one man over that? Depends on the man. Depends on his training. Depends on his origins. We don't know the people that buy our congressmen. The closest you can come to for a list of that are the lobbyists.
I feel like history has vindicated that opinion of yours, which previously perhaps might be more not controversial, but more specious, or as some people might consider that. But I feel like the COVID lockdown is 100% proof of that. That was not a democratic arrangement, the way in which it happened. And one of the saddest things, about the lockdown is how it put so many small businesses out of business.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but think of all the big businesses, all the corporations who could outlast, the lockdowns and sort of just choke out all the weaklings. I couldn't help but wonder if that was part of the reason for the lockdown. You know what I mean?
I do. And you hope it's not true.
Yeah.
You hope that you hope it's not true. But the sad reality, is that if the last 2 years have proved nothing else, it's that in modern Western quote unquote democracies, the average citizen has very little control over his life. Now, mind you, that's always been the case. It's just that we had it shoved in our faces. Or as I love to say time and time again, when they had us put on our masks, they took theirs off.
Yeah.
But the good news also, when you talk about the two-thirds and representation and all that, what about a corrupt majority? Take our own state of California. Now, 61% voted for the worthless Governor Newsom. That's bad. 65% voted to enshrine infanticide in the state constitution. Now, even if Congress truly represented the majority, is that a majority that deserves representation? A lot of dead babies in California might argue otherwise. Under a circumstance like that, I wish there was a single individual who could say, no, Californians, you don't get to murder your infants. You're going to have to try something else. Maybe keeping it zipped. I really am aghast, frankly, that the thing passed with such a majority. And the fun part of that is that there's a 4% group of people in California who know that Newsom is a moron, but voted for infanticide anyway. Probably pro-abortion Republicans, a heap and helping of 4%. So, it's one of the tenets of classical liberalism that the people are basically good. The problem is the people are you and me. And you and me are miserable sinners. A majority of us put together is not necessarily right. So who decides? Well, it's a tough call. So you've got several layers. One, Congress, as I say, does not really represent the people. But two, even if it did, which people and when and how? Because remember, too, the majority changes. In 72, if abortion had been submitted to a referendum, a nationwide referendum, it would have been easily beaten. But in all the years since, we've had a decaying educational system, an ever more corrupt media, and an ever more unspeakable government, massaging and manipulating and changing and altering and accepting and helping the majority to become what they need them to be. So it always brings us back to the same problem.